Om Gyanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Tinamne. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nevasesha Srinyavari Paschatadesha Tarini. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. On this occasion of the first anniversary of the departure of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, we here at New Mayapur, of course, very deeply and very painfully miss his association. As most of us may know who are on this program, that Bhakti Charu Maharaj was extremely instrumental in the very fact that we're here in New Mayapur in France. In the 1980s, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj basically, by his endeavour, saved New Mayapur for Srila Prabhupada. I was not here at that time, and I think others will speak on that historic event and the miraculous interaction or interjection of Maharaj in this regards. But at this time, on the first anniversary of his departure, I just speak a little bit of my memories. And to be honest, I'm very unfortunate not to have taken advantage as much as perhaps we could of Maharaj's association during his presence on this planet. But we had a little association here. In fact, we were graced here at New Mayapur 2 years ago. Bhakti Charu Maharaj and many disciples came here to New Mayapur, and they had a 1-week retreat here in this holy dham, and it was so incredible to get that opportunity to spend some priceless moments with Maharaj. For many of us, Bhakti Charu Maharaj is the emblem of Vaishnava etiquette. He's the emblem of the sweetness, we could say, of our culture, and the simply natural, being a natural devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement in so many ways. And when he was here, we experienced that so much. His loving exchanges, his kindness, his very etiquette itself, in so many qualities. We could go through each and every one of the wonderful qualities of a Vaishnava. First time I met Maharaj, or saw him, I can't say met, it's a bit familiar, but the first time I saw Maharaj in my memory was in late 70s. I happened to be in Calcutta, probably 79, and we somehow or another, we were staying, at that time he was with Sarva Bhavana Prabhu, and they were translating Prabhupada's books into Bengali, and we stayed in the house where they were residing, I remember, for some days, not for too long. And during that time, well, all I can remember, other than the sweetness of Maharaj's hospitality and his friendliness at that time, was the fact that he was cooking. And I'm sure many have mentioned this, but you can't let's say, talk about Maharaj's glories without mentioning his incredible ability in the culinary arts, to say the least. Not just in traditional cooking, but in so many varieties of cooking. He particularly seemed to like Chinese preparations. But there he was cooking for us, and that was, I didn't appreciate it at the time, how lucky we were to actually have the opportunity to honor the offerings made by such an advanced Vaishnava. One more little kind of memory, I wasn't there on the day, but for quite a few years I was serving in New Zealand. When I was there one time, I wasn't there at the moment, but I was in service in that yatra for quite a while. In fact, Maharaj used to come there from time to New Zealand. And one time, a devotee told me, as a very amazing example of, let's say, utility is the principle. But he was, although he was a sannyasi, a traveling preacher, he was cooking sometimes for the deities and the devotees in the temple. And one time when he was there cooking, there was a virtue, there was practically no bhoga, at least vegetable-wise. Grains may have been there, but vegetables were almost none. He said, no problem. And he went out into the forest. There's not a very big forest, but he went out into the forest at New Varshan in Auckland. And he just looked around the forest, and he came back with a big basket of different types of green vegetables, which most people thought were just weeds. But he brought the whole bag back and cooked a wonderful feast for their lordships and for the devotees. He's showing us all, how Prabhupada utilized everything in Krishna's service and knew how to get the best out of the worst. Hare Krishna. But more than that, I can't remember much about that particular time, and I can't even say for sure. Chronologically, when I know in Singapore, we were together for a little while in Singapore. Again, it was centered around a similar thing. As Vaishnava, religious principles established by the behavior of a Vaishnava, certainly Maharaj established the most, let's say, in Kali Yuga particularly, exceptional standards of Vaishnava behavior, which we were just not used, at least I was just not used to anyway. And wherever I went, he was always, whatever was on my mind, even if I still am envious, etc., he would somehow or another, he would just open his arms, embrace and welcome you just like, you're the most important person in the world. He made you feel like you were worth something, that's for sure. And even in Singapore, he just welcomed you and made sure you had what you needed. He knew how to serve the Vaishnavas, service to the Vaishnavas. This is really you could say the most powerful way of pleasing Prabhupada, and he really knew that art of service to the Vaishnavas. The same thing would happen in London. Several times he invited me for lunch in London. He would stay with Harivans Prabhu, who passed away many years ago. Wonderful disciple of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who lived in North London. And I knew him also because he was an optician, so I used to get my glasses fixed there. So several times he invited me for lunch. It was the same experience. It was just so loving. It was just like the most caring. I know what you say, like we're in one sense, in terms of, you could say, initiation brothers, but he was really like an elder, loving brother, and always so very, very, very encouraging. But that was in London, but I didn't get much more association with him after that. In Mayapur sometimes, obviously at the festival, I think every devotee, especially God brothers and God sisters, will have fondest memories of how Bhakti Charu Maharaj, every year I was in Mayapur, I can't remember an exception, to be honest, but he would invite us all every year during the Mayapur festival to come to his room for incredible prasadam. I mean, what can you say? Bengal, the best of the traditional Bengali cooking, as well as many other preparations. And he would personally be there to see that he lived. One thing, Maharaj lived his talk. I mean, many times we talk about etiquette, we talk about the philosophy, we talk about behavior, we talk about qualities, etc. But Maharaj was living, and in memory is still, that he was a living example of Vaishnava behavior. And that was exemplified in those situations. And we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so many of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are centered around this very principle. Receiving devotees, serving devotees, and just satisfying devotees. And he would go around to each and every devotee. Is there anything more you would like? Are you satisfied? He just had such a caring for all of Prabhupada's family, whoever they may be. It was such a privilege just to remember him. What can I say? Then last 2 years ago, he came here to New Mayapur, And in New Mayapur, he led sublime kirtans as always, gave so many wonderful uplifting classes and seminars, and just made everybody feel they wanted to stay in Prabhupada's family forever. It wasn't just his personality, which was sublime, but the fact that he so much, had so much love for Srila Prabhupada and so much dedication, it just poured over on anyone who was fortunate enough to spend a few moments with Maharaj. I mean, even a few moments was, quite an exceptional sadhu sangha association for just lava matra has such an incredible effect. So I don't have, to be honest, I can't remember, and maybe if I were to think more deeply, or maybe remember many more occasions from here to there, interactions with Maharaj. We did fly one time on an aeroplane, but we were a group of devotees flying from London to India. And basically, when you're on an aeroplane, unless you're sitting next to somebody, you're just sitting on the aeroplane. I can't remember much about that airplane flight. And we never thought, we don't think that any time Maharaj will not be with us anymore in that same way. He's here now in his words of instruction, he's here now in his memories, he's here now in the inspiration, he's here now with us, at least, in the fact that we have this opportunity to take up this legacy here in New Mayapur, which was very dear to him. He very much considered New Mayapur like another one of his homes. It was Prabhupada's home, so it was another one of those, what you say, everywhere a devotee goes is home, but one of the special home for Maharaj, perhaps in Europe, the most meaningful or most intimate place for Maharaj. In France, he was of course GBC here for some time in the French zone, and gave a lot of his life for the service of Prabhupada's mission here also, as well as everywhere else. And he has many disciples here, and I just wish we could serve them in a way which would please him, please Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So what can I say? So many have had much more realizations, much more association, much more to share with us at this point of time. But I just pay my homage and my obeisances at lotus feet of Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and pray that one day I can follow a little bit in his footsteps and bring a little pleasure to Srila Prabhupada and to all the devotees of our movement. And in that sense, he's like an acharya to us, showing exemplary example of Vaishnava Seva. And Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.